First contact. Xanthos couldn't tear her eyes away from the holographic display. The young xenoanthropologist had spent months petitioning for access to the Galactic Alliance's restricted archives, and now that she finally had it, she was determined to unravel a centuries-old mystery: the secret behind Earth's undefeated combat record. As a scholar of interspecies relations, Zora had always been fascinated by the enigmatic humans. From the moment they burst onto the galactic stage, they had proven themselves to be a force to be reckoned with. No matter the foe, no matter the odds, Earth always emerged victorious. But it wasn't just their string of victories that intrigued Zora. It was the countless warnings that other species had recorded about human capabilities. The archives were filled with dire admonitions from races across the galaxy, all urging caution when dealing with Earth. Some spoke of the humans' uncanny adaptability, their knack for turning an enemy's strengths against them. Others described their unnerving creativity in battle, their ability to devise strategies that defied conventional logic. But the most chilling warnings of all spoke of the humans' sheer determination, their willingness to keep fighting no matter the cost. As Zora pored over the records, a picture began to emerge. The humans were not just skilled warriors. They were something else entirely. Something that the other species of the galaxy struggled to comprehend. And the more Zora read, the more she became convinced that unlocking the secret of Earth's success could hold the key to reshaping the Alliance's understanding of conflict and cooperation. But the records only told part of the story. To truly grasp the significance of Earth's combat record, Zora knew she would need to dig deeper. She would need to go beyond the dry reports and sterile analysis to seek out the living memories of those who had faced humanity in battle. Only then could she hope to piece together the complex truth behind the undefeated legend. As Zora made her plans, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the threshold of a revelation that could change everything. The warnings in the archives spoke of the danger of underestimating humanity, of the folly of challenging them head-on. But Zora sensed that there was more to the story than mere fighting prowess. There was a deeper lesson to be learned, a profound truth waiting to be uncovered. With a sense of purpose burning in her heart, Zora set out to chase the mystery at the core of Earth's legacy. She didn't know where her investigation would lead her, or what trials she might face along the way. But she did know one thing for certain. The secrets locked away in humanity's undefeated record had the power to reshape the galaxy, and she would stop at nothing to bring them to light. As Zora stepped out of the archives and into the bustling spaceport, she could feel the weight of history bearing down on her. The warnings of the past echoed in her mind, a chorus of caution and fear. But beneath that, she could sense a current of something else, a hint of grudging respect, a whisper of awe. The species of the galaxy might have learned to fear Earth, but Zora suspected that deep down, what they truly felt was a longing to understand. And that was a challenge she was more than ready to accept. The archives. Zora stood before the towering entrance to the Alliance archives, her heart pounding with anticipation. She had dreamed of this moment for years, but now that it was finally here, she couldn't quite believe it was real. The archives were the greatest repository of knowledge in the known universe, a vast library containing the accumulated wisdom of 1,000 worlds. But for Zora, it was the section devoted to Earth that held the most allure. Within those closely guarded files lay the key to understanding humanity's unparalleled success on the battlefield. As she stepped through the massive doors and into the hushed stillness of the archives, Zora could feel the weight of history pressing down on her. The air seemed to hum with the echoes of long-forgotten conflicts, the whispers of ancient secrets waiting to be unleashed. With a deep breath, Zora approached the central console and began her search. She had been granted full access to the Earth files, a privilege that few outside of the Alliance's inner circle could claim, and she was determined to make the most of it. At first, the sheer volume of information was overwhelming. There were thousands upon thousands of reports, spanning centuries of galactic history. But as Zora dug deeper, patterns began to emerge. Again and again, She encountered accounts of Earth's victories against seemingly insurmountable odds. The humans had faced foes with vastly superior technology, armies that dwarfed their own in size and strength. And yet, somehow, they had always found a way to prevail. But it wasn't just the fact of their victories that caught Zora's attention. It was the way they achieved them. The reports spoke of human commanders who relied on unconventional tactics, who used their enemies' own assumptions against them. They described soldiers who fought with a tenacity and adaptability that bordered on the superhuman. As Zora pored over the files, a picture began to take shape in her mind. The humans were not just skilled warriors. They were masters of the art of war itself. They understood conflict in a way that no other species could match, and they used that understanding to devastating effect. But there was something else in the reports as well, something that Zara hadn't expected to find. Alongside the tales of Earth's triumphs were countless warnings from the species they had defeated, words of caution, urging others not to make the same mistakes they had. "Do not underestimate them," one defeated admiral had written. "The humans are like no enemy we have ever faced. They do not think as we do. They do not fight as we do. And that is why they are so dangerous." Another report, filed by a species that had once been one of the most powerful in the galaxy, was even more chilling. "We thought we could crush them with our might," it read. "We were wrong. The humans are not just warriors. They are a force of nature, and like any force of nature, they cannot be stopped, only endured." As Zara read on, a suspicion began to take root in her mind. The warnings in the archives weren't just a testament to Earth's combat prowess. They were a sign of something deeper, a hint that there was more to humanity's success than just superior tactics and tenacity. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but Zara knew that she was onto something big. The secrets locked away in the Earth files held the key to understanding not just humanity, but the very nature of conflict itself, and she was determined to uncover them, no matter where the path might lead. With renewed determination, Zara dove back into the archives. She had a feeling that she was just scratching the surface of a mystery that would change everything she thought she knew about the galaxy and her place in it, and she couldn't wait to see where the journey would take her next. The Vela incident. The holographic display flickered to life, casting an eerie blue glow over Zora's face. She had lost track of how long she had been in the archives, poring over the Earth files. But the deeper she dug, the more convinced she became that the key to understanding humanity's undefeated record lay not in the reports themselves, but in the stories behind them. And there was one story in particular that kept drawing her back, a tale of a pivotal battle that had taken place decades ago, on the fringes of Vela space. The Vela Imperium had been one of the most powerful and aggressive species in the galaxy, with a fleet that dwarfed anything Earth could muster. And yet, somehow, a small human task force had not only survived the Vela onslaught, but had decimated their ships in the process. As Zara watched the battle unfold on the display, she could see why the Vela had been so confident. Their ships were massive, bristling with advanced weapons and shielding. By contrast, the human fleet looked almost primitive, a ragtag collection of small, agile craft that seemed hopelessly outmatched. But as the first shots were fired, it quickly became clear that the Vela had underestimated their foe. The human ships moved with a speed and precision that defied belief, darting in and out of range like ghosts. And when they struck, they did so with a creativity and unpredictability that left the Vela reeling. Zara watched in awe as the human fleet used asteroid fields as cover, luring the Vela ships into deadly ambushes. She saw them exploit weaknesses in the Vela formations, sowing chaos and confusion among their ranks. And when the Vela finally managed to corner a human ship, they found themselves facing not a crippled foe, but a devastating suicide charge that took out half a dozen of their own vessels in the process. In the end, the Vela fleet was reduced to a handful of battered survivors, limping back to their home space in disarray. And the legend of Earth's undefeated record had gained a new chapter, one that would be studied and analyzed by military strategists for generations to come. But for Zara, The true significance of the Vela incident lay not in the details of the battle itself, but in the way it had shaped the perceptions of the wider galaxy. In the aftermath of the conflict, the Vela had been quick to spread word of their defeat, warning other species not to underestimate the humans as they had. And those warnings had taken on a life of their own, growing and evolving with each retelling. The humans went from being seen as skilled warriors to something almost mythical, a species that could not be defeated, no matter the odds. A force of nature, as the old report had put it, that could only be endured, never overcome. Zara leaned back in her chair, her mind racing with the implications of what she had discovered. The Vela incident was more than just a turning point in Earth's military history. It was a watershed moment for the entire galaxy, a moment when the balance of power had shifted and a new legend had been born. But even as she marveled at the significance of the battle, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to the story. The warnings in the archives spoke of human adaptability, of their uncanny ability to turn their enemies' strengths against them. But what was the source of that adaptability? What drove the humans to fight with such tenacity and creativity, even in the face of impossible odds? As Zara pondered those questions, she knew that she had only begun to scratch the surface of the mystery that lay at the heart of Earth's combat record. The Vela incident was a piece of the puzzle, but to truly understand humanity's role in the galaxy, she would need to go deeper still. With a renewed sense of purpose, Zara turned back to the archives. She had a feeling that the answers she sought lay not in the battles of the past, but in the voices of those who had fought them. And she was determined to find those voices, no matter where the search might take her. Voices of the vanquished. Zara had always been a believer in the power of stories. As a xenoanthropologist, she knew that the tales a species told about itself could reveal more about its true nature than any dry academic analysis. And so, as she dug deeper into the mystery of Earth's undefeated record, she found herself seeking out the stories of those who had faced humanity in battle. It wasn't an easy task. The species that had been defeated by Earth were often reluctant to speak of their experiences, as if the very memory of their losses was too painful to bear. But Zara was nothing if not persistent, and slowly but surely, she began to gather the threads of a larger narrative. She spoke to a grizzled old warrior from the Vela Imperium, who had been one of the few survivors of the fateful battle that had broken his species' power. She listened as he described the shock and disbelief that had rippled through the Vela ranks as they realized the true scope of human ingenuity. "We thought we knew what we were up against," he told her, his voice rough with age and memory. "We had studied their technology, their tactics. We thought we had them figured out, but we were wrong. The humans, they don't fight like anyone else. They don't think like anyone else. And that's what makes them so dangerous." Zara heard similar stories from other veterans, tales of human resourcefulness and adaptability in the face of overwhelming odds. But what struck her most was the way that so many of those she interviewed spoke of their defeats, not with bitterness or resentment, but with a strange sort of respect. "They taught us a lesson," a former admiral of the Calthi Confederacy confided in her, "a hard lesson, but a valuable one. They showed us the limits of our own thinking, the weaknesses in our strategies. In a way, I suppose we should be grateful to them for that." As Zara pieced together the stories of Earth's vanquished foes, a picture began to emerge. The humans were not just skilled warriors, but something far more profound. They were teachers, in a sense, using the crucible of conflict to force their enemies to confront their own limitations and evolve beyond them. It was a revelation that left Zara both awed and unsettled. The idea that Earth's victories were not just about military might, but about a kind of cosmic pedagogy, was not something she had ever encountered before. And yet, the more she thought about it, the more sense it seemed to make. After all, what was the true purpose of conflict, if not to drive change and growth? The species that emerged victorious from a war were not just those with the strongest weapons or the most advanced technology, but those that could adapt and innovate in the face of adversity. And by that measure, Humanity was not just undefeated, but unrivaled. But even as Zara marveled at the implications of her discovery, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something missing from the picture. The stories of Earth's defeated foes had shed new light on the nature of human warfare, but they didn't explain the deeper mystery that lay at the heart of humanity's role in the galaxy. To truly understand that mystery, Zara knew that she would need to go beyond the tales of the vanquished and seek out the perspective of the victors themselves. She would need to speak to those who had shaped Earth's military strategy, who had guided humanity through its countless trials by fire. It was a daunting prospect, but one that Zara knew she could not shy away from. The secrets of Earth's undefeated record were too important, too potentially transformative, to be left unexamined. And so, with a sense of both trepidation and excitement, she set out to track down the architects of humanity's victories and hear their stories for herself. Little did she know that the journey she was about to embark upon would take her to the very heart of the mystery she had been chasing, and that the answers she found there would change everything she thought she knew about the galaxy and her place in it. But then again, that was the nature of true discovery. It was never about the destination, but about the path that led there. The Mordant Crisis. Zara had barely begun to process the implications of what she had learned from the voices of the vanquished when a new crisis erupted across the galaxy. The Mordant, a species known for their aggressive expansionism, had launched a surprise attack on several of the Alliance's younger member races. The news sent shockwaves through the galactic community. The Mordant were a formidable military power, with a fleet that rivaled even the mightiest of the Alliance's own. And their targets, a cluster of peaceful, technologically modest species, seemed hopelessly outmatched. As Zara watched the reports coming in from the front lines, she couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. The Mordant's tactics, their ruthless efficiency and overwhelming firepower, were all too reminiscent of the stories she had heard from Earth's defeated foes. But there was one key difference. This time, humanity was not the target of the aggression, but a potential ally to those who were. At first, Zara assumed that Earth would intervene quickly and decisively, as it had so many times before. After all, what better way to cement its reputation as the galaxy's undefeated champion than to come to the aid of the defenseless? But as the days turned into weeks and the Mordant's advance continued unchecked, a strange and unsettling pattern began to emerge. The Alliance's response to the crisis was muted, almost paralyzed. The great powers that had once stood ready to defend their allies now seemed hesitant, as if they were afraid to risk provoking the Mordant's wrath. And at the center of it all was Earth. The humans, so long the galaxy's most fearsome warriors, were conspicuously absent from the fray. Their ships remained in their home system, their armies on standby. It was as if they had suddenly lost their appetite for conflict, or perhaps their nerve. As Zara dug deeper into the situation, however, a very different picture began to emerge. The Alliance's inaction was not a sign of cowardice or apathy, but of something far more insidious. The Mordant, it seemed, had been studying Earth's combat record just as closely as Zara had. And they had come to a chilling conclusion. To challenge humanity directly was to court certain defeat. That much was clear from the countless warnings that filled the archives. But what if there was another way? What if, instead of facing Earth head-on, one could simply make the cost of intervention too high for even the humans to bear? It was a strategy that the Mordant had embraced with ruthless efficiency. They had targeted species with close ties to Earth, knowing that any human retaliation would be seen as an act of aggression against the Alliance as a whole. They had leaked false intelligence suggesting that they possessed weapons capable of striking at Earth itself, sowing fear and doubt among human leaders. And most insidiously of all, they had weaponized Earth's own reputation. The warnings that had once been a testament to human military prowess had become a psychological weapon, a means of paralyzing potential adversaries with the specter of unstoppable human retaliation. As Zara contemplated the implications of the Mordant strategy, she felt a growing sense of unease. The humans had spent centuries cultivating an aura of invincibility, a legend that had become the bedrock of galactic stability. But now, that very legend had become a liability, a tool that could be turned against them by a clever and ruthless enemy. The Mordant's advance continued, and with each passing day, the fate of the Alliance seemed to hang in the balance, and at the center of it all was Earth, the undefeated champion that now found itself facing a very different kind of challenge. Not a test of arms, but a test of will. Zara knew that she could not remain a passive observer any longer. The secret she had uncovered in the archives held the key to understanding the true nature of the crisis that now gripped the galaxy. And perhaps, just perhaps, they held the key to resolving it as well. With a newfound sense of urgency, Zara set out to bring her findings to those who needed to hear them most. The fate of the Alliance, and perhaps of the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. And she would not rest until she had done all she could to tip the scales in favor of peace and justice. The human perspective. Zara stood outside the imposing doors of the Earth Embassy, her heart racing with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. She had come here seeking answers, desperate to understand the true nature of humanity's role in the unfolding crisis. But now, faced with the prospect of finally meeting the architects of Earth's undefeated record face to face, she found herself hesitating. Taking a deep breath, Zara squared her shoulders and stepped forward. She had come too far to turn back now. The secrets she had uncovered in the archives, the stories she had heard from the voices of the vanquished, they had all led her here, to this moment. As she entered the embassy, Zara was struck by the understated elegance of her surroundings. The humans, it seemed, had a knack for projecting an aura of quiet confidence, even in the midst of chaos. And chaos was certainly the order of the day, as evidenced by the frantic activity that buzzed around her. After what felt like an eternity of waiting, Zara was finally ushered into the office of the human ambassador. She was a tall, elegant woman with piercing blue eyes and an air of unflappable calm. And as Zara began to explain the purpose of her visit, she found herself instantly at ease in the ambassador's presence. "You've come a long way to seek the truth," the ambassador said, her voice soft but firm. "And the truth is rarely a simple thing, especially when it comes to matters of war and peace." Over the next several hours, Zara listened as the ambassador spoke of Earth's long history of conflict, of the hard lessons learned, and the difficult choices made. She heard of the toll that centuries of warfare had taken on the human psyche, and of the deep-seated desire for a lasting peace that had driven humanity to the stars. But most of all, Zara heard of Earth's unique approach to military strategy, an approach that had been honed over generations of trial and error. The humans, the ambassador explained, had long ago realized that victory on the battlefield was only the beginning of the true struggle. "Anyone can win a war," she said, her eyes distant. "But it takes a special kind of wisdom to win the peace that follows, and that, more than anything, is what sets humanity apart." The ambassador went on to describe how Earth had turned conflict into a tool for growth and progress, using the crucible of war to forge bonds of understanding between species that had once been bitter enemies. Every victory, every defeat, they were all part of a larger plan, a grand strategy that sought to transform the very nature of the galaxy itself. As Zara listened, she felt a profound sense of awe and humility wash over her. The humans, she realized, were not just warriors or teachers, but something far more profound. They were the guardians of a vision, the stewards of a dream that had the power to unite the galaxy in ways that had never before been possible. And yet, even as she marveled at the scope of Earth's ambition, Zara could not shake the sense of unease that had brought her to the embassy in the first place. The Mordant crisis still loomed large, a threat that seemed to grow more dire with each passing day. When she voiced her concerns to the ambassador, however, the woman simply smiled. "The Mordant have made a grave miscalculation," she said, her voice calm and assured. "They think they can use our own legend against us, that they can turn our reputation into a weapon. But they have forgotten the most important lesson of all, that humanity's greatest strength lies not in our arms, but in our hearts." With those words echoing in her mind, Zara left the embassy, her thoughts racing with the implications of all she had learned. The human perspective had given her a new understanding of the true nature of the crisis that gripped the galaxy and a newfound sense of hope for the future. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that the challenges that lay before them were greater than any that had come before. But she also knew that with the wisdom and courage of Earth to guide them, there was no obstacle that could not be overcome, no darkness that could not be banished by the light of understanding and compassion. And so, with a renewed sense of purpose, Zara set out to share her discoveries with the galaxy, to be a voice for the vision that the humans had so long championed. The time for secrets and shadows was over. The time for truth, for unity, and for lasting peace had finally begun. Revelation and resolution. Zara stood before the assembled leaders of the Galactic Alliance, her heart pounding with a mixture of nerves and excitement. She had spent months preparing for this moment, distilling the secrets she had uncovered in the archives and the insights she had gleaned from the human ambassador into a coherent narrative. And now, the time had come to share that narrative with the galaxy. As she stepped up to the podium, Zora could feel the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her. Representatives from every corner of the Alliance were here, from the mightiest empires to the humblest colonies. And all of them, she knew, were desperate for answers. Esteemed delegates, Zara began, her voice ringing out clear and strong. I come before you today not to speak of war, but of understanding. Not to sow fear, but to offer hope. And most of all, to share with you a truth that has the power to change the very nature of our galaxy. With those words, Zara launched into her presentation. She spoke of the countless warnings that filled the archives, the dire predictions of human invincibility that had so long haunted the dreams of the Alliance. But she also spoke of the deeper truth that lay behind those warnings, the secret that Earth's vanquished foes had so long failed to grasp. The humans are not undefeated because they are invincible, Zara said, her eyes shining with conviction. They are undefeated because they have learned to turn every conflict into an opportunity for growth, every war into a chance for enlightenment. She went on to describe how Earth had used the crucible of battle to forge bonds of understanding between species, to break down the barriers of fear and prejudice that had so long divided the galaxy. Every victory, every defeat, they were all part of a grand design, a strategy that sought to turn enemies into allies and allies into friends. As Zara spoke, she could see the dawning realization on the faces of the assembled delegates. The Morden crisis, they began to understand, was not a test of arms, but a test of will. A challenge that could only be met with the same courage and wisdom that had so long guided humanity's hand. And with that realization came a newfound sense of purpose. The Alliance, Zara knew, could no longer afford to be paralyzed by fear, to let the specter of human retaliation dictate their every move. They had to find a new way forward, a path that led not to war, but to lasting peace. In the end, it was the humans themselves who showed the way. Working hand in hand with Zara and the Alliance leaders, Earth's ambassadors crafted a bold new plan, not a strategy of conquest, but a vision of cooperation. They reached out to the Mordant, not with threats or ultimatums, but with an invitation to join in the great work of building a better galaxy. And to the surprise of all, the Mordant accepted. Faced with the prospect of a united alliance, led by the wisdom and courage of Earth, they saw the futility of their aggression, the emptiness of their dreams of conquest. And in that moment, a new era was born, an age of peace, of progress, and of endless possibility. As Zara watched the leaders of 100 worlds come together in celebration, she felt a profound sense of hope wash over her. The journey she had begun so long ago, driven by a thirst for knowledge and a longing for truth, had brought her to this moment. And in that moment, she knew that she had been a part of something truly great. The humans had shown the galaxy the way forward, not through force of arms, but through the power of understanding. They had turned conflict into a tool for growth, war into a chance for enlightenment. And in doing so, they had forever changed the course of history. As Zara looked out over the sea of faces before her, She knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges to face, obstacles to overcome. But she also knew that with the wisdom of Earth to guide them, and the courage of the Alliance to sustain them, there was no limit to what they could achieve. And so, with a heart full of hope and a mind full of dreams, Zara stepped forward into the bright light of a new dawn. The future was waiting, and she could not wait to meet it.